Hello, welcome back to the channel, everybody. We are continuing our saga of restoring the vintage Aria Pro 2 Stray Cat. Yeah, I'm sorry that I didn't film the full sanding process. I'll offer you a dramatic reenactment here. Okay, so you grab yourself some of this nice wood filler or Bondo, get your grain sealed up, make sure that everything is filled to the extent that it can be. Use a nice level sanding block like this one and make sure that you're paying attention to your transitions. I like to go to about 320. Some people, if they're sanding, for paint grade wood, they're only going to go to like 220. There's still some areas of discoloration. Those are areas where the original sealer continues to be there. And I don't really take a lot of issue with that still being there. I mean, especially if that was there specifically because there was already some kind of an imperfection in the wood. That's pretty much it. You may be wondering why I preserved the paint inside of cavities like this one, and inside the pickups. Because this particular paint from the factory has metal in it. For a guitar like this one, I'm not really sure it's going to do much. The idea is that it makes something kind of like a Faraday cage. I'm going to try to preserve as much of that metal impregnated paint as I can. We'll get it primered. We'll get it painted. I think we're going with purple. This is supposed to be an obnoxious guitar, so we're gonna make it obnoxious. And before I forget, this little contraption right here, right? This is nothing more than just a plain old piece of wood screwed to some PVC tubing. This is my handle. I have a special mount that I've made so I can just stick this right onto that mount and not worry about it falling over as it dries for what I'm sure will be days at a time. All right, so we're back down in the workshop. Let's take a look at, the primed product that we've got here. Let's really get focused in here at all of the areas where we knew we did work. If you remember, that's where we had to put that plug. You can't see it at all. It's gone, disappeared. The patch that we had to do here for the wood tear out, that's going to be invisible once the bridge is in, and it's absolutely rock solid. All of our dings and our dents, all of our scratches, gone. This guitar is almost ready to paint, but before we get to that, we got to put some more holes in this body. I'm going to show you how to place those holes for the bridge pins and how to, make sure you're drilling the right sizes for the electronic components you're going to install. So the critical thing at this point is you don't want to be making any guesses. Before you start drilling holes in your body, you want to order the components that you know you want to use. Now, why is that important? You think, okay, well, a potentiometer, the little knobby thing that controls volume or tone in your guitar, well, the holes are all going to be the same size. They're not. Don't make any assumptions. Order the parts that you know you're going to want to use, and then drill your holes to fit those parts. We have a standard 3-way toggle switch. This is the thing that decides which pickup or combination of pickups is going to be active on the guitar. Here we have the kill switch. This kill switch is going to be used to completely cut off the output of the guitar, Tom Morello, Rage Against the Machine. That right? Tom Morello used effectively a kill switch. Buckethead, another guitarist that uses a kill switch. This is a cool addition. This is something that my son asked for, and he'll be able to use it way better than me. New jack, volume pot, right? This is the thing that's going to control the volume of the guitar. Push-pull pot for the tone. This is the thing that's going to enable us to split our pickups so that we can use both the coils of the humbucker or just one coil of the humbucker. Now that I have all of these in my hands, I can take measurements on them and make sure that my holes are properly sized. We're going to start off by looking at the components that we bought versus the holes that we already know that we have. So in this setup, this hole, right, the larger one, is supposed to be for the pickup selector switch. These two holes that you've got here are for the volume and for the tone knob. So volume knob just to see if it's correctly sized. That hole is too small, so we know that's going to have to get re-drilled. Pick up selector switch. That hole is already perfect, good to go. This is the potentiometer that's going to be used for tone. Obviously, too small. So, what size holes do we want to drill? This is where one of these gauges really comes in handy, right? You can pick these up for almost nothing. Takes all the guesswork out. So we're just going to size it. Oh, there we go. That's the size that we need. It is 3/8 inch. The kill switch is going to require 15-30 seconds. Oh, we forgot the jack. This should also be 3/8. Yep, 3/8 inch. All right, before we move on to anything else, we got one more 3/8 inch hole to drill, and that's going to be the hole for the jack. This one is going to require a little bit of extra thought, right? Because when you put the jack in, you can't just have this jack be wherever, because you got mounting hardware that's going to exist on the back, stuff that does not fit through the hole. So if it's not centered in an area where you can mount it correctly, that's going to create problems for you down the road. You also don't want it to be, you know, like in your way. So we're going to drill a pilot hole in an area that we know will be beneficial, you know, for jack placement from the inside first. And that's going to give us the center for where we're going to drill the bigger hole from the front, so we can deal with any issues of potential tear out and keep the hole nice and clean. That jack will fit pretty much anywhere on here. So we're going to go dead center into that plug piece that we made. Somewhere about in the center. And you stop as soon as you feel yourself go all the way through the wood, and that marks the center for where that 3/8 inch hole needs to be. That's not the cleanest hole ever, but it'll do. Quick test fit. So the issue that we're running into now is that the shaft of the jack itself is not long enough to make it through the amount of wood that we put for the plug here. So the way we're going to deal with that is going to be by removing some of the wood from the back of this hole, so that it gives us, I don't know, about 3 threads worth of jack sticking up, so that we have something to like actually anchor to. So I spent some time thinking about it, and there's a bunch of different ways that you can handle this. Like, you could go in and you could use like a Forstner bit, but that seems a little drastic, and there's a lot of torque that gets generated by those, and it can cause the guitar to fly out of your hands. You want the smallest tool that will do the job with the highest degree of like precision that you can possibly do it, without worrying too much about how it's going to look. Because again, you're removing material from inside a cavity where nobody's ever going to see it, right? And all we're looking to do is just get enough stuff out there that the nub on this jack has enough clearance to get all the way through. So to do that, what we're going to do is I'm just going to put a router bit into a Dremel, right? And I'm going to very, very cautiously hold it as I try to remove material from around this hole. It's going to go something like this. Ugh. There you go. Hopefully you can see that, right? Just create enough space to make room for this. Now let's see if it fits. Yep. Stick it up just enough. Okay. We have a problem. 15-30 seconds is a really odd standard size, right? The nice thing about these little charts is they give you conversions. 15-30 seconds will definitely do the job. 31/64 will also do the job. 1/2 will do the job, but it's sloppy, right? See how it wiggles around in there? I don't like that. I don't want that to be that way. Why is this so like, why does this have such an odd number to it, 15-30 seconds? It's because it's probably designed to work with metric. If you look at this conversion chart, 15-30 seconds is 11.9 millimeters. 12 millimeter drill bit. I've had some comments. Looking at you, Stu. Hey Adam, nice shop. Thank you very much, right? But like, this is how you get to that nice shop. Every tool that's in here, look around, right? All of this stuff. The lathe, the poor man's drill press, the table saw, you know, all of the sanders, all of this other good stuff. Everything that's in here is in here because I was doing a thing and I needed that tool once. I should have a set of metric drill bits. I don't. I now have to go buy metric drill bits. And it makes sense that I would do that if I'm going to work on guitars more, especially import guitars, because they use the metric system. One more tool that hopefully I'm never going to have to buy again, that I had to buy for this one thing I did. That's how it goes. My wife's going to be thrilled. For whatever it's worth, right? Like, if you find yourself in situations like this, try to avoid going to big box stores if you can help it. I feel the same way about this as I feel about local tackle shops. Big box stores don't need your money. This place is pretty close to being a big box store, but at least it's locally owned and operated. It employs people. It gives them jobs. Does it cost a little bit more? Maybe, yeah, but it's a few cents, right? So, do the right thing. Go to your local hardware stores when you gotta buy this kind of stuff. It makes a big difference. I don't take back what I said, but sometimes when you go to the smaller mom and pop shops, they don't have the stuff that you're looking for at all. It's a bummer. So it turns out I don't have metric drill bits for a good reason. They are impossible to find. Like, nobody sells them. But what they do have are relatively inexpensive Harbor Freight, like everything from 1/16 all the way up to 1/2 inch in 1/64 inch steps. So the 15-30 second drill bit is in here. And this was only like $16, so it'll be useful. But man, what a pain. Now we got to think about where we're going to put this hole. When you're playing guitar, ergonomics are everything, right? So you have to put thought into where you're going to stick stuff. And you're also limited because you've only got this cavity in the back, right? So like, you've got this real estate here that you can make use of, but you don't want to position things so that they're wonky. Your hand is going to be on the guitar like this when you're playing, right? You want to easily be able to reach over and hit a button. Now, naturally, I'm inclined to hit right in here. I'm not going to be able to do that though, because if I go to the position that I wanted to hit, it's going to be through this thick part of the wood. So I'm going to have to move it down to a spot that makes sense. And I also have to think about, there's going to be a knob right here. So the fact that there's a knob right there means this is going to take up more space than it looks like. And you also don't want it to look like Hogan's goat. You don't want to accidentally place your hole such that like it falls over this edge. The best place to put this is going to be right in there. Do we agree? That's still reachable right there. We're going to drill this from the back first so that we can get a very clear idea of exactly where it's going to come through on the front. And then once that's through, we're going to come back with the bigger drill bit and we're going to make the hole big enough to accommodate the kill switch. Good? Cool. $15, 30 seconds. We are now moving into the part that I dread, which is drilling the holes for the bridge pins. So let's harken back to what we talked about during the last episode. This is a 2-point tremolo system, right? And the way that this works is you got those two little notches, right? 1 and 2. And then you have these bolts, which are anchored into the body using this threaded insert. The threaded insert goes into the wood, and the bolts are able to raise and lower so that you can set the overall height of the bridge relative to the body, right? So you might think, oh, well, it's super easy to figure out how to drill your hole, but it's not quite that simple. What you really have to think about is how these notches line up against these bolts. Mark this edge, make sure this is perfectly centered. Slide it all the way back. Mark that edge. This is the gap in space that we have to move front and back. What we're going to do is split that down the middle. Actually, put this back in. Mark it here and here. 10 millimeters from this side, from this edge to this edge. So we're going to mark this off 5 millimeters from the first edge. 5 millimeters from that edge. And when we put the trim back in, we're going to know that that is centered. And from here, we can now mark these notches. Make sense so far? Cool. Now we have to find out exactly what half the diameter of the narrowest part of this bolt is. 11/64. So half that distance would be 11/128. So we take our caliper and we set it for 11/128. We lock it down. Okay? Now we put our caliper right at the very deepest part of that notch that we drew. And we use the edges of the caliper to mark the point that we're trying to get to. We do it from a couple different directions to make sure that we get it as centered as we possibly can. Get a good close look at that. All right? You got your notch, and you found the center for where the drill bit actually needs to go. Cool. Now, ideally, what you would use for this type of drilling would be a brad point drill bit. I'll show you an example of what that means. This is a brad point drill bit. And it's great because the brad point always finds the center of the hole. So you line this up the way that you need to, and you are absolutely certain that you are going to just pinpoint accuracy make the hole that you need. So what we got to do now is we got to measure this, figure out what size these threaded inserts are, and then we need to step that down by just enough of a hair that it allows those ridges to grab and really anchor into the wood. Again, we use our caliper, 5/16. Okay, so if we were to use a 5/16 drill bit for this, that would cause a problem because the hole would be too big. It would be stripped out right off the bat. You wouldn't have anything for those ridges to grab onto. So we'll give ourselves some sense of an idea of how big these ridges are. Let's call it a 1/16 of an inch just to be safe, right? So you back off 5/16 and you say, all right, 4/16, 1/4. The drill bit that we're going to start with is going to be a 1/4 inch drill bit. As it turns out, I do have a 1/4 inch brad point drill bit. Before we start drilling holes though, we got to make sure that we know exactly how deep we're going to go. Now you've seen me do this trick already. I haven't really talked about it. You know, there are depth setters on the poor man's drill press, and those are great, but they're time consuming to set, and we're not doing like 1,000 of these holes, right? So let's keep it simple. All we're going to do is we're going to take the threaded insert, we're going to hold it up to the lowest point on the drill bit. We're going to mark off using a piece of tape the depth that we want to drill to before we stop. Now you're going to want this to be a little bit recessed, just a because you don't want it sticking up and getting in the way. So we're going to go just a hair deeper than we know this drill bit is going to cut, and that is at the base of that brad, right? And then we're going to mark that with our thumbnail. It's not the most precise thing in the world, but it gets us to where we want to be. And then we're just going to take a piece of tape, and we're going to use this tape to set our depth. Think about what direction the drill bit is spinning as you do this, because you don't want, as it touches the tape, to grab the tape and rip it off. It's about the right depth right there. Measure twice, cut once, right? One more time. That is the depth we want to go to. All right. Okay. Now you'll notice that these inserts have a tapered side. That tapered side is the one that you want to go down into the hole. 1/4 inch is not going to do it. Let's go with 19/64. Moment of truth. I can't tell you how much it was stressing me out to have to do this. It's such a pain. Like, the precision for this stuff has to be so close. I mean, if you're off by a few thousandths of an inch, it makes all the difference in the world. And that went really, really well. Our mounting points are in. They are slightly recessed. All of our holes are drilled. The stuff that we had to fill in is invisible. Everything is primered. It's ready to go. We're ready to prep for paint. And really, the only prep that we're going to do in this case is fill in those threaded inserts so they don't get gooped up. And we're just going to make a little glob of this here tape. Just wad it up nice. We're going to stuff it in the hole. During the last episode, I talked about how something in me was saying that we needed to make this guitar some kind of sparkly purple. And my son Aiden had a fantastic idea. Dad, color shift paint. This is awesome. This one, like, could be anywhere from green to blue to purple. I've never used it before. My understanding is that, like, the key is that you have to do a base coat of black, and then, you know, the more coats of the stuff that you can get on there, the better the effect is going to be. So we're going to shoot for getting 3 out of this. This stuff is expensive. It's like $20-something a can, even on Amazon. So it better be good. But I'm excited. We're going to move on to painting. Moving on to painting is going to be the thing that lets us move on to working on the neck. We're making great progress. I made the mistake of thinking that my basement shop was ventilated well enough to spray paint down here, and it is not. Woo! I'll keep recording as we put more coats on this thing, as we sand it and finish it and get it as shiny as we can get it. Wow, the fumes are strong in here. I'll let that sit overnight, come back. In the next episode, we'll talk about fixing up the neck while the paint is drying. Thanks for watching. I hope you're finding this useful, fun, entertaining, whatever. It's cool. We're breathing new life into a thing. It's never too late to care again.